Jean.
Kia ora, thank you. I want to move on to NCEA and the curriculum. We might be able to do them together, but I'll start with NCEA. So I just note on page 4 of the report, it says the government's announcement of significant reforms to the NCEA system were deeply informed by our evaluation report set up to succeed. How well is NCEA Level 1 working for our schools and students? Did that report review the whole of NCEA?
No, the report reviewed NCEA Level 1, but made a recommendation that many of the issues we're seeing at NCEA Level 1 are structural and would therefore be an issues for NCEA Level 2 and 3. But it also strongly recommended, therefore, not to make changes to NCEA Level 1 in isolation. It's unusual as a country that we have 3 years of back-to-back high-stakes assessment. So we said, don't make changes to NCEA Level 1 without also deciding what you want to do with NCEA Level 2 and 3.
And just in terms of that, though, did the report look at any of those things in NCEA Level 2 and Level 3?
Should I tell you a little bit about what we looked at and what we found, so you can see why it's relevant, if that's helpful, very briefly?
But the report is about, the focus is on Level 1, okay, right?
So the report looked at NCEA Level 1 and, for example, found that it was too flexible, with 60% of teachers saying it's not a reliable measure of skills. That flexibility in choosing credits we put together remains at Level 2 and 3. The second thing
is... But did you look at that?
We don't look at it.
In Level 2 or 3? No. Yeah.
But we looked at it being too variable. So, for example, when you're twice as likely to get an excellence in an internal rather than an external, that's not a credible qualification. Thirdly, we looked at
Did you look at that for 2
We looked
and
at it
3
for Level 1.
And the whole?
And then obviously we passed the report to the Ministry and NCEA, who look about whether it applies to 2 and 3. We looked at whether it's fair. 3/4 of leaders say that the credits are not an equal amount of work for an equal amount of effort for an equal reward. Now, when you've got 3/4 of our leaders across the country saying that you can spend a few hours doing one thing and get 4 credits, and you can spend a lot of time elsewhere, like a whole term, that's not equal. And finally, the thing that worries us, which we did look at for NCEA Level 1, but others, the structure is a structural problem which applies to 2 and 3, is it's not motivating our students to keep working through the year. So because of how NCEA is structured, you can finish very early, either because you've got all the credits, so you're not going to bother doing the exams, or you've just even finished as early as September, you've reached it, or you're not going to get there. And that really concerns us about learners who are tuning out of learning early in the year, and it concerns principals. So to answer to your question, I just wanted to elaborate. These things are structural to NCEA, which is why even though we review NCEA 1, we pass those findings on to the Minister and her Principal Advisory Group, because they're quite structural to how NCEA itself is set up.
So in terms of that, though, your methodology, you looked at Level 1, you made recommendations about Level 2 and 3 without actually doing the same in-depth analysis of Level 2 and 3. And then that has been taken to support the entire scrapping of NCEA as a framework.
Is that a question you would like me to answer? Okay, so your question was about...
My question's about methodology.
Okay.
Yep. And for your recommendations. Yep. And also, further to that, was that peer reviewed?
Yeah. So in terms of methodology on NCEA Level 1, we completed over 6,000 surveys, which for us is a very large sample.
For Level 1?
Yes. We also interviewed over 300 participants. We visited 21 schools. We did an international literature review and a New Zealand literature review. We looked at admin data, included the integrated data infrastructure, which enables us to track children over time. And we looked at NCEA data and the Ministry of Education data. In terms of the recommendations we made, the recommendations were for NCEA 1, but we did clearly say, and this is as far as we went, because you're right, it's important to pull it to the data, that you should not look at NCEA Level 1 in isolation. That's because through those surveys, conversations right across the country, and through our international comparison, it is very clear that when you're looking at senior secondary qualifications, you need to look at those 3 years together. For example, a large number of teachers and principals said that NCEA Level 1 isn't preparing children for NCEA Level 2. We looked at that, we record that, and we report on it, and the recommendations say, these are the things, the issues we're seeing with Level 1, and this is what you need to look at 1, 2, and 3 together. In particular, if I must just finish, in particular, we are concerned by the number of principals who are choosing, because it is a choice, not to offer NCEA 1. And that concerns us because as Zero, we think it's really important that there is a national qualification that all students get an equal chance to participate in. And when we were seeing, and we did go back and resurvey schools to check that trend, we found an increasing number, particularly of high decile schools, as they used to be called, or schools in more affluent backgrounds, choosing not to offer NCEA Level 1. So our recommendations are about NCEA Level 1, but saying NCEA Level 1, 2 and 3, you can't separate and look at them separately.
Yeah, and so
Sign us up.
And so given that the methodology for this report was only to look at level 1, and you've drawn conclusions about levels 2 and 3 and included that in your recommendations, were you asked to do further work on levels 2 and 3 before at any stage, and for the proposed change to the NCEA framework? Were you asked to do that work, or did you think you should do that work? Because you could initiate it or the minister could initiate it.
So our recommendations are not about level 2 and 3, except as they affect level 1. Our report, we always hold to scope and methodology. Our scope and methodology was to look at level 1, but also to look at its place in the qualification framework. We did an international comparison across those years so we could see how does it sit, so we don't look at it in isolation. That's why we recommended looking at 1, 2, 3 together. In terms of whether we then chose to go out and review levels 2 and 3, we did not choose to go out and review levels 2 and 3. We chose to review level 1, and that is what we looked at. The minister already set up a principal advisories group who took forward this report and other data and evidence from NZQA and the Ministry of Education in going forward.